Painting backgrounds is hard. I don't blame artists for straying away from backgrounds. There are so many things that you have to consider before even attempting to try a big background piece. Perspective, color, composition, line, light, how do I paint materials? There's so many things to consider. It's very overwhelming when you start. And even me, a professional background painter, I get super overwhelmed when I want to attempt a big piece. There's just something so beautiful about painting landscapes because it helps us see the world through our emotions and through what we are feeling in the place that we are. Because sometimes cameras can't express the beauty of a place. Painting backgrounds is very fun. You can make it less hard by dividing the background process into small, bite-sized pieces. One of the best ways that I've found to learn how to draw backgrounds is to do studies. Oh, Clarissa, what is a study? I don't know what it is. I got you. Studies are small exercises based on art fundamentals. These are supposed to be really fast and focus on one or two fundamentals at a time. There are several art fundamentals that you can study. However, in this video, we will only focus on the three most important ones for background art: value, perspective, and color. I will show you how I study each of these fundamentals with three really simple exercises that will elevate your background art. The first study we will do today is a film value study. When people get into background art, they usually want to jump straight into color. However, their paintings sometimes end up looking like this. What people don't tell you is that sometimes to get better at color, you have to paint with no color at all. Color makes a painting interesting, but value makes it clear. For those that don't know, value is basically how light or dark a color is. To start this exercise, we will look for film screen caps. I am using the website FilmGrab to do this. The reason why I'm using film frames is because cinematographers have a very good grasp of value and composition, since movies have to communicate very clearly what's happening on screen. After I find my references, I jump into my drawing program of choice and take the color away from the screenshots. In Photoshop, you can use Ctrl or Command U and take the saturation away. After this, I jump into painting. I am using a really big brush and not zooming in at all. For this study, we want to only focus on the main values and big shapes instead of getting lost in all of the details. Try to also use only 3 to 4 values. Something one of my mentors told me is that usually on the focal point we will have the darkest and the lightest value. So sometimes the lightest value is surrounded by the darkest or vice versa. Tip for values and backgrounds is that usually the objects that are closest to the camera will be the darkest, and then as you go further in the background, they will be getting lighter and lighter. By having very clear silhouettes and use the least amount of strokes as possible. Keep it simple. Another tip for these studies is to try to paint them in between 5 to 10 minutes. Keep them really fast. This will help you get faster at painting. Our second study will be focused on perspective. Perspective is really complex, and I could talk about it for an entire video. But a good study for when you're starting out is to trace over photographs and understand how the perspective works. Before we start, I'm gonna gloss over some basics of perspective. First thing to understand is the horizon line, which is basically where our eyes are in the painting. Depending on where the horizon line is, our perspective will change drastically. When the horizon line is right in the middle of the canvas, we will be looking at both the bottom sides and the top sides of our objects. I'm drawing with my finger, so don't judge me. But we basically are able to see the bottom and the top sides of our objects. However, this drastically changes when we move our horizon line. If the horizon line is very high, we will almost only look at the top sides of our objects. So if it's high, we will see the top of our objects. If the horizon line is very low, we are only going to be looking at the bottom sides of our objects. So it's kind of like the opposite. So that's kind of how I see it. Like if it's high, I'm looking low, and if it's low, I'm looking high. It might be a little confusing, but you get the gist of it. So yeah, so when in a low horizon line, we are looking to the bottom sides of our objects. Another important concept in perspective is vanishing points, which are these little points where everything points towards. There can be several vanishing points. We can have as many as we want really in a piece. However, the basic ones are 1 point perspective, then 2 point perspective, and then 3 point perspective. To start this exercise, we will look for some basic photos of buildings in perspective. Then we will trace over them, trying to understand what's happening on the image. First thing we do is to try to find the horizon line and the 2 vanishing points. Try to find where every line in the image converges to, and that's gonna give you your vanishing points. After having the vanishing points and tracing the image, we will try to replicate the same perspective but in our own way and with our own eyes. So we kind of like very roughly sketch the image and try to place the vanishing points on our own, and then try to replicate the house, but with a very basic sketch. Try to only really use squares and triangles if you need to. The best way to learn how to do perspective is to just do squares. Try to replicate several images and it will help you understand perspective in a very basic way, but it's also good for people that are already experienced with perspective, and it gives you a refresher on basic structure of buildings or just objects in general. And now it is time for our last study and the most requested, a color study. For this study, we will completely avoid having correct perspective or value, and we will only focus on the color of the image that we are studying. Colors are very tricky, but this exercise will help you understand how to choose colors properly on the color wheel. So basically, first step is to kind of guess the color at first. We want to start painting this kind of like brownish color. The first thing that we're gonna do in this exercise is kind of eyeball it. Basically, I see it red. I see it kind of over here. It's kind of my guess where I think this color is. I think my guess is that that color is over here. And wow, honestly, the first guess wasn't that bad. However, the value is a little bit wrong, so I will try to match this color as best as I can. So I kind of will go a little bit more down. And I think this is pretty close. Yeah, this is a pretty good match, but maybe you will guess over here and then it's kind of hard to match. So the way I train my eye to see color is to basically, actually I color pick first. So I go over here and then I see exactly where it is. So I actually wasn't that far off. So the actual color is very saturated and it's very dark, and it's kind of like, so I kind of see where it is in these sliders and I see where it is over here. And then I try to replicate it the best. I go to wherever color, choose it over here, and then I try to choose it myself again. So I think it was around here. Yeah, and it's pretty close, as you can see. So this is kind of the way that I train myself to see color. I color pick, then I choose a random color, and then I choose it again. And then I kind of adjust it to the best of my abilities. Obviously, the color is not gonna be the exact color like the Pantone. You know what I mean? Okay, so now I want to try and guess this specific color, the one that is over here, and so I think it's around here, maybe a little bit yellower. And so let's see how we do. Let's swatch it. It's a little bit too light, so let's make it a little bit darker. Still a little bit too dark. So now, so by eyeballing it, it doesn't really work. So let's color pick again, and it's actually okay. It's actually around here. It's kind of in between the yellow and the green, and it's around this area, but there you go. So let's try to replicate it. See, then I think it was around here, and yeah, it's pretty close match, let's say.
So that's basically the color. Once you want to start studying the piece, this is kind of like the workflow that I have when I'm studying color. So the first color we already chose, and then I do it in very big blocks of color. So you have to basically study one aspect at a time when you're doing backgrounds, because it's a very complicated topic. It's not as simple as drawing the human figure. It's a lot of steps. Here we are just studying color, so we're doing it in big shapes. This area is a little bit lighter, and then the other color we chose was around here. I'm also using this square brush from Yuki Deemer's brush pack. So sometimes I choose the color at first, and then I kind of choose it again to see how far off I am, and I was actually very far off. For these studies, don't really worry about like anatomy, or the piece doesn't have to be perfect. You're just studying color, so it can be as simple as you want.
Another example. So for more complicated studies, I like to add a base color that kind of matches the vibe of the painting, and then I sketch in a kind of traditional way, in the sense that I try to grab that base color and make it a little bit darker to sketch with silhouettes. It's kind of like the process that plein air painters use with gouache paintings. So it's good to incorporate kind of traditional methods into digital art. Same thing as all of the other exercises. Avoid soft brushes. Use a big round or square brush, and don't zoom in. These studies are not going to be perfect, but they will help you so much in the long run. For these exercises, also try to time yourself, so do it in around 10 to 15 minutes. This will help you increase your velocity when painting. And now we have reached the end of the video, and that was the last study. I hope these studies help you guys, and please let me know if you try them out. Let me know if they have helped you, if they didn't help you. You tell me on the comments. Also, I wanted to give you guys a little gift for those who stayed at the end of the video. On my last video, a lot of people were asking me which brushes I use, and even if the brushes don't matter for like a piece, I want to share the ones that I made and that I use on a daily basis. So I will be putting a link in the description for my brushes. They are free to use. Please let me know if you use them. Thank you again for watching this video. Thank you so much, and then see you on the next one. Goodbye!